listening to The Marc Cox Show. Follow the show on Facebook, facebook.com/The Marc Cox Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right. Right now, as we speak, Fox 2 News is reporting that dozens of St. Louis metropolitan stores, convenience stores, are being raided by federal agents. Local PDs and the county police, maybe federal agencies are involved. The witnesses report questions from police about possible synthetic drug sales and cigarette sales across state lines. The convenience stores include Molly's Markets, Six Star Liquor and Convenience, and Northway Market. Many of them apparently are in North County. So they've been targeting convenience stores, gas stations, cigarette shops, liquor stores. Agents can be seen pulling merchandise from the stores, going through dumpsters, and at times confiscating weapons and an ATM. So if your local convenience store looks a little busier than normal, you may want to avoid it today.
And you know what, Mark? There may be a deeper undercurrent to that, because a lot of these businesses are owned by Middle Eastern people, and I wouldn't doubt it if they were. And in some instances around the country, that these businesses have been fronts for funding terrorism across over the Middle East. So I would not be surprised.
You know, Joe Biden talked about that one time, didn't he? Hold on. Well, I can't remember. Didn't he?
In Delaware, the largest growth in population is Indian Americans moving from India. You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent to fully. I'm not joking.
That's the man who's apparently running for president again.
Yeah.
So he's also talking about some of the people who run convenience stores.
He may, he could give Donald Trump a run for his money in
He's
the states,
not
and
gonna
Wisconsin
run.
and Michigan and all that. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying he's going to, but
he's not going to run. So let's talk about the terrorist attack that happened last night at this Ariana Grande concert. My suspicion is I like to think it had nothing to do with the type of music, unless indeed they decided to target younger kids to somehow be more evil than they already are. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, two thoughts on this. I'm sad, of course, and my condolences go to the people of Manchester and in England. And I'm mad. I'm mad because of what happened, that we're starting to see these terrorist attacks happen continuously. But I'm also kind of mad at myself, because these terrorist attacks are becoming so numerous that it's almost, you're like, oh, another terrorist attack. I'm sad. I know it's a bad thing, but I'm fearful that we're beginning to see so many of these attacks in our country and around the world that it's becoming complacent. And I think that's very dangerous.
Well, I think a lot of people assumed that Brexit might have fixed the problem in England, but not in other parts of Europe. But Brexit really hasn't happened yet, and there's still free roaming throughout Europe, and the refugee crisis hasn't changed at all. The election in France was one example of that. It's clear from the voters in Europe that they don't want to change the way they're operating, and they're going to see more and more of these. It exactly strengthens Donald Trump and this administration's argument that we've got to have better vetting of the people we want to bring into this country. They need to be people who want to come here, people who don't have a history of violence, have never said anything negative about the United States or wanting to kill people who didn't agree with their religion. There's not a problem with that. Yes. And I heard I'll think of his name in a minute. One of the well-known attorneys come out and say yesterday, look at this case and then go back to this executive order that the president's had blocked by the court and tell me that we don't need to do more than we're doing.
The refugee problem is definitely an apparent threat, but what we've seen in these last instances of terrorism, they've been lone wolf homegrown people. They were of foreign descent, but they were native-born citizens of these countries. I think it was the same with this gentleman they've identified in Manchester. He was of Libyan descent, but he was British.
I don't disagree with that, except that last week I had Tom. I had somebody on from Judicial Watch. I saw a report by Tom Fitton pointing out that Mr. Mueller, who's been appointed special investigator for this Russia collusion thing, was the FBI director in 2013 when the FBI purged its standards and procedures of anything that might be perceived by the Council on American Islamic Relations or some of these other groups to be overbearing or anti-Islamic or Islamophobic or whatever. That's back when we decided under the Obama administration that we would no longer allow investigations in mosques and all this other stuff.
Surveillance.
Well, the Obama administration started us down that path. They're well down that road in England and Europe and these places, so they're going to have more homegrown terrorism because they refuse to acknowledge that it's a problem. And for politically correct reasons, which are going to kill a lot of them, they won't look into it. They won't change their methodology for fear that somebody's going to look at them and say, that's not fair. You're targeting one group of people over another. Well, I'm sorry, but it's not Christians who are strapping bombs on their chests and blowing themselves up.
Yeah. But, like you said, there are more refugees over there, but, I still don't think you can take the homegrown aspect of it. I mean, what's to stop someone from renting a SUV and just plowing people down Market Street or, the Cleats Landing or somewhere, and they could be born right here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So
gets back to what I said earlier about what the president said to these Islamic leaders. You've got to quit rewarding people for acts like this. You've got to quit. You got to make sure that it's not the perception of people in radical sects that Muhammad praises them for these things. If that's not the case, you need to drive that message home. Yeah. You've got to take that away from them as a reason for doing it. Yeah. I think that's very true. Let's switch real quick before we run out of time to this special session. I had the governor on yesterday.
Really?
Today I'm having
Mr. Bearden?
Carl Bearden from Missouri United United for Missouri. Sorry, I couldn't think of the name. He's dead set against what the governor's trying to do, which is get a special deal passed for cut rate utilities for this steel plant. But a lot of people argue that why wouldn't you do that for everybody? Why are you picking winners and losers? Where do you stand on that?
Well, and United for Missouri is a group that formed to watch out for taxpayers' dollars. And, the Constitution, Missouri Constitution says that when you call a special session, it's supposed to be something extraordinary. And I think it's reasonable to say that a special session that is seems to be focused towards one group may not qualify as a special session. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think the public perception of this special session that's going on is going to play a lot on what happens, what comes out of it.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to bring up ethics reform.
They're saying this may be one of 3 or 4 special sessions, so political junkies like us will love this.
Yeah, and the governor kept throwing up the career that's his favorite line, career politicians.
Yeah.
He kept saying, career politicians don't want this. They wanted to go on vacation. I'm not going to let them do that. We're going to get some stuff done. Yeah. But it's the Constitution that says the session is over on that Friday in May, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see.
After 8 years of Jay Nixon kind of being AWOL, it's kind of exciting to see a governor that's kind of hands-on. He may not be making decisions that everyone agrees with, but it's good to have a activist governor.
There you go.
The first time in 8 years.
Chris Arps, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for coming in. Coming up here in the next hour, we're going to dig back into this budget a little bit. You've heard my take on it. We'll talk to some of the folks who study economic policy for a living at the Heritage Foundation. They're going to join us. And as I mentioned a minute ago to Chris, Carl Bearden, our friend and the head of United for Missouri's Future, is going to call to talk about the legislative session and the utility bill that they're voting on down there that the governor wants them to vote on anyway. We'll get his take on it, and we'll get to your phone calls at 314-969-9797.
This hour of the Mark Cox Show brought to you by Naputi Wellness, NaputiWellnessCenter.com.
It's time for you to call Rhino Shield and get on their radar for this summer because they're starting to book out these jobs throughout the course of the summer. You know, occasionally we're going to have some bad weather this summer, so you want to get your name on the list.